Yo, what's up guys, my name is AFCADino and welcome to another video, this time on Pokemon Showdown. I actually plan on playing more Pokemon Showdown these days. I actually been quite burnt out of Pokemon for a while now, and I've been trying to play, but yeah, it got to the point where I don't really feel like playing, especially after a few things that happened lately. Don't have to go in depth about that, but yeah, I've mainly playing on Showdown now for now, and I was looking for some fun games on Showdown, and then I found this stall team. I was messing around with my friend Radium88, making this alt account. But yeah, I played against Phil Stall, and I was playing Rain, and Stall is like probably one of the worst matchups for Rain team. So I had a really bad matchup because my main wall breakers were Greninja and Swampert, which gets walled by the combination of Tangrowth, Toxapex and Chansey. So looking at team review, it was going to be a really rough match, and I actually found a way to break through it with this team. So let's click play and let me commentate over it. So looking at this team, most of my members get completely walled, and my Ferroturn doesn't really get to do anything just because he has a Sableye, and when he Mega Evolves I don't get up spikes. I cannot knock off him. If I had Gyro Ball or Power Whip, it wouldn't have done that much damage. So he's most likely going to lead off with the Sableye, so I decided to lead off with Pelipper. I also don't have any status moves on this team like T-Wave, Toxic or Wisp. My only way of statusing my opponent is through the Scald from Pelipper and burning them, and that's basically what I plan to do. I really wanted to burn off on the Sableye. Usually you don't want to burn members like Tangrowth because when you have Toxic, because you prefer to Toxic them, and if you burn them you cannot poison them anymore. Because I don't have Toxic, it was probably better to get off the burn on all of his members over not statusing them at all. So yeah, my lead for this game was going to be Pelipper. I'm using a Z Magearna with Stellium Z and Flash Cannon. As long as he has Chansey healthy, it doesn't really get to do anything, but it also has T-Bolt so that it could deal with the Toxapex. So if I can somehow lower the Chansey and get a Calm Mind off, because it's Calm Mind Shift Gear, again I can actually do it. Obviously if I get rid of the Tangrowth, then Swampert gets to do a lot, but it's going to be really difficult. Tornado is going to be my key player in this game just because he has Taunt and Knockoff, and that combination is really good against those slow-paced teams. But yeah, so let's click that play button, and I lead off with Pelipper as he leads off with Sableye. Like I said, I just want to get the burn off, so I'm going to spam Scald here till I get the burn. And luckily I get it on the first time. He didn't actually Mega Evolve. When he Mega Evolves, he loses his Prankster ability, so that way he doesn't get the priority recover. Maybe he was scouting if I were like a Choice Specs Pelipper and going for Hurricane or Hydro Pump, because if he Mega Evolved there and I was Specs, I could have 2-hit KO'd him. But he goes for the knockoff, knocks off my Damrock and knows that I'm not Choice Specs, so he's gonna Mega Evolve there as I go for the U-turn, and I get in my Greninja here as he goes for recover. And most Sableyes do carry Protect, just because it guarantees them the Mega Evolution against Pokemon like Clefable and Diancie who carry Moonblast. So I just go for Hydro Pump here, see how he plays it. He brings in a Toxapex, and it actually does a lot. It did 43%. So this is most likely physical defensive Toxapex. That's good to know, because if I get rid of his Black Sludge and get up Spikes or Stealth Rocks, Hydro Pump in the rain might 2-hit KO it next time. But yeah, I know for a fact he's going to go for the recovery here. So I'm going to switch out into the Ferroturn as he actually decided to go for Toxic Spikes. maybe predicting me to switch out. Fair play. I cannot really set up a spike just because he has the Sableye. He already has a spike up, so I decide to double into my Pelipper here, because if he does switch into the Sableye, I can kind of defog. He already knocked off my item, but he decided to go for an extra layer of toxic spikes, so he has 2 layers of toxic spikes up. So I really want to defog them as he's bringing the Sableye. He does get the magic bounce off, but the defog still goes off, and I remove the toxic spikes as I go for the U-turn, and I go into my gear now because he showed knockoff. If he has toxic, then Magearna is obviously not affected. If he has Will-O-Wisp, it's not the biggest deal, but if he goes for knockoff, he cannot knock off my Z item, so does go for knockoff and only does 4%. And now Sableye is either going to switch out or he's going to protect, because I could be running Fleur Cannon, which is going to destroy the Sableye. So I decide to bring in my Swampert here, hoping that he would go into his Chansey. But he decides to go for protect, and I obviously don't want to say it because he could still be carrying the Will-O-Wisp. So what I'm going to do is bring in my Pelipper here. If he goes for toxic, it's not that big of a deal, but I don't want this Swampert burned. So I bring in my Pelipper as he does go for Wisp, and I really hope that Will-O-Wisp was going to hit, just because if he burned me, the chance he could not press toxic on me, the Gliscor could not press toxic on me, and that's basically a free switch for me every time I defog, like Stealth Rocks or Toxic Spikes. But unfortunately he missed, so he can still poison my Pelipper. But yeah, I do get the burn chip there, and I'm going to U-turn just because I expect him to go for the recover here. And I'm going to bring in my Greninja now. And what I'm attempting this time is to go for the spikes, hoping that he would switch into his Toxapex or his Chansey. If he does go for protect, it's not the biggest deal, just because my main Pokemon being Pelipper and Tornadus are not affected by the spikes. And Ferrothorn has leftovers and leech sheets, which he can use on the majority of his team, because the Clefable is on a stall team. Clefable is like always unaware, unless he has another unaware mon. Only Tangrowth is not affected, but if I can knock off the Tangrowth, that's also really nice. But I am going to attempt to go for a spike here, as he does stay in. Unfortunately, he goes for the knockoff. On one side, it's actually really bad for me because the Specs Hydro Pump can do a lot, because this is a physical defensive Toxapex. But on the other hand, I am able to switch up moves. So I am actually going to attempt to spike again. If he does stay in, I can still defog the spikes away. But if he switches out, it will be very rewarding for me, because the entry hazards, just getting up entry hazards against stall teams, is like one of the best things. So we'll see. Does end up switching into the Chansey as I get up a spike. Really huge for me, because now I'm bringing in my Tornadus. Goes for the toxic. I could have anticipated the toxic, but if I went into Ferrothorn, I wouldn't have gained anything, because I bring in Ferrothorn, and if he went for rocks there, he would have gotten up rocks, and then could have just brought in his Sableye and I gained nothing. If he went for Stealth Rocks here, he wouldn't have poisoned me, and then I could have either knocked off or taunted. But yeah, he poisons me, and I'm going to go for the knockoff here over taunting, because if he does stay in, I get rid of the Eviolite. But if he switches out, I do damage on something. So Sableye coming in, and I knock him off. And after the burn damage, he's actually at a quite nice HP to attempt this, because here I'm deciding to go for the Hurricane. It's probably not going to knock him out, even with the Life Orb, but if I get the confusion, I can actually kill it, and I can afford to go for it because Tornado is pretty healthy and I have the Regenerator. So that's, I was hoping to hit the Hurricane, but I miss, unfortunately, and he goes for the Recover. So bit of an unfortunate turn, but I'm going to switch out here because the poison is wrecking up. Bring in my Pelipper because Sableye doesn't really do anything against it. He already knocked off my item, and I can just U-turn on this as he goes into Pex. And I'm going to bring in my Swampert now because I don't think he's going to bring in a Sableye on a Swampert. So this is my chance to go for the Stealth Rocks. This is most likely a physical defensive Toxapex, judging from the Hydro Pump damage earlier, so he could live on Earthquake. So I get on my Rocks there, he goes for Toxic Spikes, and I'm still going to Earthquake here. As he goes for another Toxic Spikes, and this is where he's most likely going to switch now. Just because if he loses Toxapex, I can defog his hazards away, and then my Greninja and my Swampert can do a lot. So I expect him to go into the only thing that could take an attack from my Swampert being the Tangrowth. So with Spikes and Stealth Rocks up, yeah, I know it doesn't show Spikes, but I have Spikes up. I'm going for the Ice Punch because I don't think he's going to stay in. Ice Punch hits pretty much everything on his team, but he's most likely bringing in his Tangrowth, and hopefully I can 2-hit KO it. So Spike, Stealth Rocks, Ice Punch 34, so this is a full physically defensive Tangrowth. I'm not able to 2-hit KO it, and he's also Rocky Helmet, and at that point, yeah, Swampert didn't feel really useful to me. But I'm obviously not gonna sack it here. I'm bringing in my Pelipper because it's a bit of mixed. EVs are a bit of mixed, so it can live a Giga Drain easily. And if he goes for knockoff, he already knocked off my item, so it's not a big deal. But he decides to switch into his Sableye again. This is at the point where he needs to recover, so I'm gonna U-turn. But he actually makes a switch into the Chansey there, and that was big for me because look, the Sableye didn't heal. He has to switch into Stealth Rocks and Spikes again, and also takes the burn damage. And now I get the U-turn off on his Chansey. Chansey taking Stealth Rocks and Spikes again, and my U-turn damage. And because my Tornadus has taunt, I can taunt this. Seismic Toad is not gonna do that much, and that means he cannot heal. So if he switches out again, he needs to switch into Stealth Rocks and Spikes again. So going for the taunt here as he attempts to go for the Soft Boil, and that's a big turn for me. I go for the knockoff here because it hits everything, and again Sableye has to switch into Stealth Rocks and Spikes, and he also takes the burn chip. And this knockoff damage 2 hits KOs him. I know he has Protect, and I am going to switch out into Pelipper here because he could Protect here, and then if I could decide to knock off twice and ensure he dies, but I cannot lose my Tornadus. Tornadus, because taunt and knockoff are still needed to win this game. And if he protects here, that's going to be really bad for me. So I decide to bring in my Pelipper, expecting him to protect because he's going to live another turn. As he does end up going for the protect. And the reason I brought in my Pelipper is because he got Spikes and 2 layers of Toxic Spikes up. And I wanted to bring in something that's can guarantee knock this out. Didn't want to take the damage on Magearna because I think Magearna can win just because the Chansey is weakened. If I get a Calm Mind up and a Soul Heart boost, I can kind of sweep his team. And I didn't want to get Greninja and Swampert weakened with Toxic Spikes. And Ferrothorn could be slower than a Sableye, and then he can get a free recover off. So Pelipper was the only thing that wasn't affected by the entry hazards and was able to knock out the Sableye, and it worked out for me because he did go for the protect, and now I can just go for the U-turn, and he stays in. I knock him out, and I bring in my Tornadus because Tornadus taunts everything on his team, knocks off the Gliscor, and I can also proc another Regenerator turn by bringing him in like this. So he decides to bring in the Clefable. I'm just gonna taunt here. He takes Stealth Rocks and Spikes damage, so it's confirmed that he is unaware. So he goes for the protect there on my taunt. Nice play. And I'm just going to bring in my Ferrothorn now, because now I can actually start stacking up spikes because the Sableye is gone. Oh wait, I actually went into the Pelipper. Yeah, because his Sableye is gone and he still had spikes turns up. I wanted to defog these spikes away, because the only reason he got up spikes was because of the magic art, but now that Sableye is gone, he cannot get up spikes again. I don't care too much about the toxic spikes because it only affects 2 members of my team, because Magearna and Ferrothorn are immune because they are steel types, and Pelipper and Tornadus are flying types, so they don't step on the toxic spikes. So sorry about that, guys. But yeah, I bring in my Pelipper. I'm going to roost here first to keep Pelipper healthy. He goes for the toxic, so it's not a calm mindset. I wouldn't have been the biggest deal just because I still had Magearna in the back and Tornadus who could taunt him. But yeah, it goes for toxic, so Pelipper is poisoned, and it would have been nice if he hit the Will-O-Wisp on me earlier, because then he couldn't have poisoned me. But now I'm going for the defog as he goes for the wish, and I'm just gonna U-turn here. If he wants to patch it on, I can bring in my Tornadus, but he decides to stay in, so I get in my Ferrothorn now. And like I said earlier, his Sableye is gone, so I can stack up those spikes. He decides to go into his own toxic packs. The worst thing he can do is set up toxic spikes himself, but then again, only 2 members of my team are affected. The other ones aren't. Goes for the Scald here. He doesn't burn me. It's not the biggest deal. I do get off the lead sheet, but because I have the lead sheet off now, I don't want to take the Scald burn because it's not necessary. So I can bring in my Tornadus. He doesn't take too much from the Scald, and because he's lead sheeted, I don't lose any health from the toxic spikes because it gets negated, or from the poison. So he goes for Scald, and the lead sheet heals me 12.5%, and I lose 12.5 toxic, so I don't lose anything. And if I just switch out, I gain all this health back and basically be at full HP. But I'll go for knockoff here to get rid of the black sludge as he goes for the recover. And now I'm going to switch out because the poison is starting to rack up. So I'm going into my Ferrothorn as he makes a switch into Glasscore. At that time I was really thinking about double knocking off, but I didn't want to let my Tornadus get too low because I needed him to be able to switch into like a Moonblast from Clefable and a Seismic Dose from Chansey. So I wanted to keep him as healthy as possible, so I went for the safe play. But he went into Gliscor and he activates the Orb. At this point I just want to lead sheet it. Looking at his team, it's the only potential defogger. Some people do run defog next to Sable, like us. Clefable usually, Magikarp Clefable usually easily gets up Stealth Rocks against these teams because Sableye doesn't want to take the Moonblast. So having a defogger next to a Sableye is usually nice on the stall team. So I go for the lead sheet as he goes for the defog. And now I'm just starting to set up my spikes again because spikes has more PP than defog. And since I'm slower, I always guarantee the spikes. But he went for the earthquake there. I'm decided to set up one more. If he doesn't defog, I have 2 spikes, and that kind of forces him to defog, which gives me a free switch. Earthquakes again instead of defogging. And now I'm going to bring in my Pelipper. Because it gets a free Scald off basically. Actually earthquakes again over defogging, so now my opponent has to make a very difficult choice. Scald is obviously not gonna kill a Gliscor, but it's a Scald in the range, so it's gonna do so much damage. If he decides to switch out, my spikes are going to stay up. If he defogs, Gliscor gets really low, and obviously Pelipper is gonna 2-hit KO the Gliscor in the rain. But I also have lead sheet off, so he goes for the defog. I get the Scald off. I do 95% damage, and with the lead sheet going first, I actually knock him out. And now Sableye and his defogger are gone, so my spikes from Ferrothorn and my Stealth Rocks from Swampert are going to stay up. So Chansey comes in, I go for the U-turn here, bring in my Ferrothorn because Ferrothorn can easily set up the spikes against it. And we start stacking spikes. He brings in the Toxapex, probably trying to set up toxic spikes again, but I'm not too bothered by it, as I explained earlier. And I'm just gonna set up those max spikes. And here I went for the lead sheet because it hits everything. He switches into Clefable, but it hits everything aside from Tangrowth. But if I knock off his item, that makes it more difficult for him to switch into my Swampert, because I can get off some freezes with Ice Punch. And by getting rid of the Rocky Helmet, I don't damage my Swampert by attacking the Tangrowth. But he brings in the Clefable, which is also nice because it's Magikarp, so it takes Leech Seed damage. And here I decide to go for the knockoff. If he wants to wish, he's going to lose his leftovers. Losing leftovers on Clefable is actually big, because that's usually the difference between 2-hit KOing it or not. He goes for the protect first, so he takes some extra chip. And I just knock off again as he brings in Toxapex, which means Clefable didn't heal. So the next time he switches in, it's going to lose 25% of his health to spikes, which is big. Here I bring in my Tornadus, because bringing in Tornadus covers any switch, because then Clefable basically doesn't get to heal, Chansey doesn't get to heal, and I can Hurricane the Tangrowth if I really want to, but I can also knock it off. But he decides to stay in and go for Scald. Here I decided to go for the Taunt so that he cannot recover, because he doesn't have Black Sludge, so his only way of recovering are switching out or pressing recover. But he went for the Scald again. Here I don't want to stay in because I otherwise going to die. I'm bringing my Pelipper to summon the rain, because the next time I get in my Tornadus I need to hit Hurricanes. Goes for Scald. I went for the Roost here because I wanted to keep Pelipper healthy. That does kind of waste my taunt turn, but yeah, so be it. And here I go for the U-turn. And I bring in my Swampert. He could Scald there, but at this point I just wanted my Stealth Rocks up, because I felt like he couldn't beat my Ferrothorn, Pelipper, and Tornadus score, because I can switch between them. So having those Stealth Rocks up and him not being able to remove my Stealth Rocks is actually really huge. And because he poisoned me with Toxic Spikes, he can also not burn me, so I just went for it. And here I just go for the Stealth Rocks as he goes for the recover. And now I just click Earthquake. I don't really care about the Swampert. I also get this damage off. He knocks me out with Scald. And here I bring in Pelipper just because, again, I wanted to summon the rain. I could have brought in my Magearna, but he can just bring in his Chansey on there. So I summon the rain. I go for the U-turn here. And now I'm bringing in Magearna now because I know he's gonna recover. But because he's at full health, he might feel more safe staying in with the Toxapex, and this gives me a Calm Mind opportunity. Because if I have the Calm Mind up and if I'm at +2, I can knock out Chansey with my Z move. And he's most likely going to stay in because I could be running Fleur Cannon with the Z move, which could destroy Chansey if I get up a Calm Mind. So he's probably just staying in here. And because I Calm Minded, his Scald is going to do reduced damage. And usually on Toxapex you carry Haze, so I didn't want to go for the extra Calm Mind. Instead I just go for the Thunderbolt to get the damage off. As he does end up staying in, being at 1%, kind of unfortunate. And he did go for the Haze here. And at this situation, I had the Toxapex really low. Magearna was going to knock out the Toxapex, but instead I decided to switch into the Tornadus just because it covers any switch he makes. goes Chansey, I can taunt it. And that was basically my thought process. And I knew I could always kill the Toxapex anyway with having my Magearna, having Ferrothorn with the leech sheet. So I decided to switch into the Tornadus. But at the time, I didn't think about that Stealth Rocks plus Max Spikes means that he cannot switch out even with the Regenerator, because Regenerator only recovers 1/3 of your health, so about 33.3%. But the Spikes, 3 layers of Spikes does 25% damage. And extra Stealth Rush does 12.5%, so 37.5% damage. So if he switches out here, he's going to die, and he doesn't have a way of removing these hazards. So I should have attacked here, but I wasn't thinking about that. I was thinking about, oh, he's just gonna switch out. But it ends up working out for me because he did switch out. And this is actually better for me, just because now he has Chansey out and I can just taunt it, meaning he cannot recover. So now my Magearna is actually a real threat, because I taunt this thing and he won't be able to recover. If he Seismic Toss, I can just switch out next turn. And now if the Chansey wants to switch in again, he loses more than half his HP, of his remaining HP. But here I decide to switch into my Ferrothorn. If he Seismic Toast there, he would have taken Rocky or Iron Barb's damage, but he brings in the Clefable. And now I'm going to bring in my my Magearna, because there's no way he's going to attack my Magearna. As he goes for the Wish here, and now he also has to make a choice. Is he going to protect here and heal the Clefable, or is he going to switch into Chansey and recover the Chansey? If he recovers Chansey, Clefable stays really low. If he recovers Clefable, Chansey stays pretty low after this hazard damage. So here I decided to go for the Flash Cannon. I should have just clicked Calm Mind here, but I was thinking if he went Chansey, he could have lived a +1 Flash Cannon. And I wasn't sure if my Z move was going to knock it out. I should have cocked that. But I should have just Calm-Minded, but I wasn't afraid of not knocking him out with Chansey at +1. And maybe I could have gotten the Spadef drop there, but he decided to go for the Protect there. So now I go for the Calm Mind. And at this point, he went for the Wish. At this point, I just click my Z. If he does bring in a Chansey, I'm pretty sure a +1 Z Flash Cannon is going to knock out his Chansey. So I basically guarantee a kill whatever he switches into, and that gives me the Soul Heart boost. Because I believe you still get the Soul Heart boost even if Toxapex dies 2 hazards, because it gives you a +1 special attack when your opponent's Pokemon dies. So I'm going to click my Z as he brings in the Tangrowth. And this is obviously going to kill it. It's not AV. Even if it was going to die. I get my Soul Heart boost, and at +2, I'm definitely going to knock out this Chansey after all these hazards damage. Because he's at 26%, but I'm at +2 max special attack. So I knock him out with Flash Cannon, get the Soul Heart boost again. Clefable comes in, and yeah, because I'm full special attack EVs, definitely gonna knock him out with Flash Cannon from this amount of health, even if he protects. And that's without the boost because he's unaware, but an unboosted Flash Cannon should kill this Clefable. So I knock it out, I get a crit, but I don't think the crit matters. And yeah, and this is where Toxapex is at 34%, but with all my hazards up, he's going to lose 37.5. That's why I should have attacked him with Magearna. But I knock him out. And it's basically how we won against that full stall team with the rain team. And yeah, like I said, I had a really bad matchup against him, but I was looking for opportunities to get up my hazards, which were huge. And then with the combination of taunt and knockoff, I was kind of able to stall break, and obviously with Pelipper at being a good pivot into a Sableye, I was able to deal with it. But I hope you guys did enjoy this battle. I hope you learned something from it. If you did enjoy the video, just hit that like button, leave a comment down below, and subscribe to the channel to see more Pokemon PvP content. But that's it for now. Peace out, and I'll see you guys in the next video.